The door clicked shut behind her like a final verdict. And for a woman who had won every case in court, Ava Lawrence had never felt more defeated than she did staring at that single sheet of paper on her kitchen table. Divorce petition Emily Harris. Her pulse hammered against her ribs. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not after the trip to Maui that was supposed to heal everything. Not after the nights they'd spent laughing under the stars, talking about a future together. Now, all that remained was silence, the faint scent of Emily's perfume, and the divorce papers signed. Ava dropped her suitcase, its thud echoing across the apartment. For a moment she thought she might wake up that Emily would come out from the bedroom, hair messy, wearing that oversized shirt Ava loved so much, grumbling about the coffee being too bitter. But she didn't. Instead, Ava walked slowly toward the table, fingers trembling as she picked up the papers. Emily's handwriting elegant, steady marked the signature line. Her name written with the same grace she used to paint with. A laugh escaped Ava's lips, sharp and bitter. So that's it? You just signed us away. The city hummed outside, cars, sirens, distant chatter. Life went on. But Ava's world had frozen, locked in that moment between disbelief and heartbreak. She sank into a chair, the lawyer in her scanning the document automatically, clauses, dates, property settlements, even though the human in her couldn't comprehend a single word. It was both her curse and her comfort, to understand too much, to feel too deeply, and yet be trained to hide it all behind composure. The apartment suddenly felt too large, too clean. Every trace of Emily had been carefully erased. No sketches left on the counter. No half-finished coffee mugs. No hairbands around the doorknob. It was like she'd never existed. Except Ava knew better. Love doesn't disappear. It just leaves fingerprints you can't wash off. 3 days later, Ava was sitting in her office, a corner suite on the 28th floor. Walls lined with law books and certificates. She'd handled divorce cases for a decade, tearing apart lives for a living. Irony had never been so cruel. "Ms. Lawrence, your 2 p.m. is here," her assistant called. Ava glanced at the clock. She'd forgotten she'd scheduled a consultation. Work was supposed to keep her sane, but every conversation lately felt like dissecting her own heart under fluorescent lights. "Send her in." The door opened and a woman stepped inside. She was tall, confident, her presence immediately filling the room. A soft beige coat draped over her arm, her hair falling in loose curls over a white blouse. "Hi," the woman said, offering a small, cautious smile. "I'm Lena Carter. I think I need a lawyer." Ava nodded automatically, gesturing for her to sit. But as she met Lena's eyes, a deep, expressive hazel, something shifted in her chest. There was a calm there, something grounding yet unsettling, like standing at the edge of the ocean before a storm. "What kind of case?" Ava asked, forcing her professional tone. "Divorce," Lena said simply. The word hit Ava like a slap. She looked down, blinking away the sting. "Of course. You've come to the right place." "I'm not sure I have," Lena admitted, her voice soft but steady. "It's complicated." Ava allowed herself a small smile. "That's what everyone says." Lena looked at her for a moment, long enough for Ava to feel seen in a way she hadn't in months. "You don't seem like someone who believes in easy answers," she said. That made Ava laugh quietly. "No, not anymore." Over the next hour, Ava learned that Lena was a successful architect, recently separated from her wife after 7 years. There were no children, no messy finances, just pain, guilt, and words left unsaid. "You know what's funny?" Lena said, tracing the rim of her coffee cup. "We didn't fall apart because of hate. We just forgot how to be kind." Ava nodded slowly, her throat tightening. "Kindness," she murmured. "It's always the first thing to die." Their eyes met again. There was no pity, only recognition. Two women sitting on opposite sides of the same story. Lena smiled faintly. "You sound like you've been there." "I have," Ava confessed. And in that quiet exchange, something fragile began to form, not quite friendship, not quite comfort. Just the faintest spark of connection between two broken hearts. A week later, Ava found herself walking through the city after another long day at the firm. She passed by a small art gallery near Soho, the kind of place she and Emily used to visit. She almost kept walking, but something made her stop. In the window, a painting caught her eye, a vast ocean at twilight, painted in strokes of blue and gold. It was signed E. Harris. Her heart stopped. Inside, the gallery was nearly empty. The air smelled faintly of turpentine and old wood. And there she was, Emily, standing in front of the canvas, her hands clasped nervously. For a long moment neither spoke. "You came," Emily said finally, her voice trembling. "I didn't know you were showing again," Ava whispered. Emily's eyes softened. "I wasn't. Until now." Ava took a step closer, her chest aching. "Why did you leave me like that?" Emily's lips parted, but no sound came. Then finally, "Because I was afraid that if I told you I was falling apart, you'd try to fix me. And I didn't want to be your case." Ava felt her composure shatter. "You were never my case. You were my home." The silence that followed was heavy with everything they hadn't said. Later that night, Ava stood by the river, the city lights shimmering across the water. Lena's words echoed in her mind, "We forgot how to be kind." Maybe love wasn't about who stayed. Maybe it was about who learned to forgive. She didn't know where this path would lead, whether she'd find peace with Emily, or something new with Lena. But for the first time in months she let herself breathe. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain and paint and the faint, impossible hope that maybe, just maybe, some endings are really beginnings in disguise. The rain started just as Ava stepped off the bridge. At first it was a drizzle, soft and forgiving, the kind that made New York glisten instead of drown. But soon it grew heavier, as if the sky had decided to join her in breaking down. She didn't bother running for shelter. Her heels clicked against the wet pavement as she walked, her thoughts tangled between what was and what could be. Emily's face kept flashing before her, the way her eyes trembled when she said goodbye, the way her voice cracked like she was confessing a crime instead of leaving a love. By the time she reached her apartment, she was soaked. The city lights reflected off her skin like broken glass. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "This is Lena. I hope it's okay that I texted. You seemed off after our meeting. Just checking in." Ava exhaled. Somehow, even through a short line of text, Lena's presence felt warm, like a hand reaching out through the storm. She typed back, "I'm fine. Just a long day." Then after a pause she added, "Thank you for asking." 2 days later they met again, this time not in the office, but at a small cafe near Central Park. Ava had tried to say no. She told herself it wasn't professional, that it blurred lines. But something in her wanted to see Lena again, to hear her voice in real time instead of replaying it in her head. Lena was already there when she arrived, sitting by the window, a cup of coffee untouched before her. She looked different out of her work clothes, softer somehow, in a cream sweater and jeans, her hair a little messy from the wind. "I wasn't sure you'd come," Lena said, smiling faintly as Ava took a seat. "I almost didn't," Ava admitted. "I'm not very good at this, talking, when it's not in a courtroom." Lena laughed, a quiet, low sound that sent warmth up Ava's spine. "Good thing I'm not suing anyone today." For a while they just sat there, watching the rain streak down the glass. It was strange. Ava thought how silence with Lena didn't feel heavy. It wasn't the silence of regret, like with Emily. It was comfortable, like breathing. "So," Lena said eventually, stirring her coffee, "did you go to that art gallery often? The one where you saw your ex?" Ava's lips tightened. "Used to. She's a painter." "I could tell," Lena said softly. "Artists leave colors behind, even after they're gone." That line hit Ava harder than she expected. She looked up, meeting Lena's gaze steady, knowing. "How about you?" Ava asked. "You and your ex, do you still talk?" Lena gave a small shake of her head. "No. It ended quietly. Too quietly. Like we both decided not to fight for it anymore." She smiled, but her eyes betrayed something deeper. "You ever notice how endings don't always come with explosions? Sometimes they just fade." Ava's throat tightened. "Yeah," she whispered. "I know exactly what you mean." Weeks passed. Work kept them meeting under the pretense of case updates, paperwork, consultations. But their conversations stretched longer each time, spilling into dinners, long walks, and messages late into the night. Ava found herself laughing again, something she hadn't done in months. Lena had that effect. She was effortlessly grounded but not cold. She saw through Ava's defenses without prying them open. One night, after a particularly grueling day in court, Ava texted Lena, "Do you believe people can love twice, truly love again?" Lena's reply came almost instantly. "I think love changes shape. Doesn't die. It learns to live differently." Ava stared at the screen for a long time before typing back. "What if the first love still haunts you?" A pause. Then maybe it's waiting for you to forgive yourself, not them." That message stayed with Ava long after she turned off her phone. By early December, the city was draped in lights. Storefronts glittered, carolers sang on corners, and the air smelled like roasted chestnuts and snow. Ava and Lena met at Bryant Park, where the skating rink gleamed under strings of white lights. Ava hadn't skated since college, but Lena insisted. "Come on, counselor," Lena teased, tugging on her hand. "You argue with billionaires for a living, you can handle a little ice." Ava slipped once, nearly fell, but Lena caught her strong arm's steady grip. Their laughter echoed in the cold air. For a moment the city disappeared, and it was just them, two women, both bruised by love, daring to feel again. When they stopped, breathless, Ava realized Lena's hand was still in hers. Neither of them let go. Later that night, over hot chocolate and cinnamon pastries, Lena looked at her and said quietly, "You don't have to be perfect all the time, you know." Ava tilted her head. "What makes you think I'm trying to be?" Lena smiled softly. "Because I used to do it too. Pretend I was fine. Keep everything neat and rational so no one saw the cracks." She leaned closer. "But you can't heal in silence, Ava." Her name sounded different in Lena's voice. Softer. Truer. Something inside Ava shifted then. Maybe it was the warmth, or the snow falling outside, or the simple realization that she didn't have to be alone in her pain. "I'm scared," Ava confessed. "Of starting something new. Of ruining it before it begins." Lena's fingers brushed against hers. "You can't ruin something by being honest. You only ruin it by pretending." Ava smiled faintly. "You sound like a therapist." "I sound like someone who's been broken and decided not to stay that way." That night, Ava dreamt of Emily again, standing in the gallery, her face a blur, her voice saying, "You can't fix me." When Ava woke, her chest ached, but for the first time it didn't crush her. The pain had softened, less a wound, more a scar. She sent a quick message to Lena. "Thank you for last night." Lena replied, "You don't have to thank me. Just promise me you'll stop apologizing for feeling." Christmas came quietly. Ava spent it alone out of choice. She lit a small candle by the window, poured herself a glass of wine, and opened the stack of letters she'd never mailed, all addressed to Emily. One by one she read them. The anger, the longing, the guilt, the love. By the time she reached the last one, tears blurred the ink. She didn't send them. She didn't need to anymore. Instead, she slipped them into a drawer, whispering, "Goodbye, Em." January arrived like a clean slate. Ava had just finished a morning meeting when Lena walked into her office, cheeks flushed from the cold. She was holding a takeout bag. "I brought lunch," she said, grinning. "You look like someone who's forgotten food exists." Ava laughed. "You're not wrong." They ate on the couch, laughing over ridiculous court stories and clients who thought irreconcilable differences meant, "She hates my dog." Afterward, as they packed up, Lena hesitated. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you ever think about us? About what this is?" Ava froze. The question hung in the air like a dare. "I do," she admitted finally. "More than I should." Lena nodded slowly. "Me too." They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Lena stood, moving closer until she was inches away. "You don't have to decide anything," she said softly. "I just need you to know I'm here. When you're ready." Ava swallowed hard, her heartbeat uneven. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to step forward. But the ghost of Emily still lingered, whispering that moving on was betrayal. So instead she whispered, "I'm trying." Lena smiled a small, understanding smile. "That's enough." She left without another word. But the scent of her perfume lingered, warm and grounding. That night, Ava stood at her window, the city glittering beneath her. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel haunted, just human. Maybe love wasn't about erasing the past. Maybe it was about learning to carry it gently, without letting it weigh you down. Her phone buzzed again, a message from Lena. Dinner tomorrow? No law talk, I promise. Ava smiled. For once she didn't overthink. Yes, she replied. Tomorrow sounds perfect. Outside, the snow kept falling soft, unhurried, patient. And somewhere between grief and hope, Ava Lawrence began to believe in love again. The first rays of spring sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting soft golden stripes across Ava's apartment. She sipped her coffee slowly, listening to the city waking up. For the first time in months, she felt calm. Her phone buzzed. A message from Lena. Brunch today? I have a surprise for you. Ava smiled, her chest warming. She typed back. I wouldn't miss it. When Ava arrived at the cafe, Lena was already waiting, perched on the edge of the outdoor seating area. A bright scarf wrapped around her neck. Her eyes lit up the moment she saw Ava, and that familiar flutter hit her chest. Good morning, Lena greeted, standing to pull out a chair. Morning, Ava replied, taking her seat. She noticed the glimmer in Lena's hazel eyes, the way the sunlight caught the loose strands of hair framing her face. There was a quiet beauty about her, a steadiness that made Ava's heart ache in the best way possible. So, Lena began, leaning forward conspiratorially. Surprise. Ava raised an eyebrow. You've piqued my curiosity. I should be worried. Lena laughed softly. Only if you're afraid of happy endings. Ava's lips twitched into a small, genuine smile. I'm listening. Lena reached into her bag and pulled out 2 plane tickets. I thought, maybe we should get away. Just for a weekend. No work, no past, no distractions. Just us. Ava stared at the tickets, a wave of emotion washing over her. Her heart raced, and for a moment, she felt like she could breathe for the first time in years. You're serious? Ava whispered. Lena nodded, eyes shining. I am. I want us to start fresh. No ghosts, no regrets. Just the 2 of us. Ava reached across the table, her hand covering Lena's. I think I'd like that. The weekend arrived and Ava found herself in a small coastal town in Maine, far from the rush of New York. The air smelled of salt and pine, and the waves crashed rhythmically against the shore, a gentle reminder that life moved on, no matter the heartbreak left behind. They walked along the beach, hands intertwined, feet sinking into the wet sand. Ava felt a sense of liberation she hadn't known in months or maybe years. The weight of the divorce papers, the ache of Emily's absence, the late nights of overthinking. It all seemed to dissolve with every step beside Lena. Do you remember the first time we met? Lena asked, glancing at her with a playful smile. Ava laughed softly. In your office. You had that serious architect look like you could solve any problem in the world. You mean the one that terrified you? Lena teased. That one, Ava confirmed. And yet somehow I didn't run. Well, Lena said, squeezing her hand. I'm glad you didn't. Ava's gaze softened. Me too. They stopped near a small pier, the ocean stretching endlessly before them. Lena turned to face Ava, her eyes searching, vulnerable. Are you ready? Lena asked. Ready for what? Ava teased, though her voice trembled slightly. Ready to start. To let go. To trust again. To us. Ava took a deep breath. She thought about Emily, about the pain, about the letters tucked away in her drawer. She thought about the nights spent staring at the ceiling, replaying every goodbye, every unspoken word. And she realized something crucial. Loving Lena didn't mean betraying Emily. It meant choosing life. Choosing love. I think I am, Ava whispered. And then Lena leaned in. Their lips met softly at first, hesitant, as if testing the waters, before the kiss deepened, gentle, grounding, and infinitely tender. Ava felt a warmth she hadn't known since she'd left Emily's apartment, a sense of being truly seen and accepted. The rest of the weekend was a series of small, perfect moments. They cooked meals together in a tiny rented kitchen, laughing when the pasta boiled over. They traced each other's handprints into wet sand and took photos of the sunrise. They stayed up late talking about everything: dreams, fears, childhood memories, and plans for the future. One night, sitting on the porch wrapped in a shared blanket, Lena rested her head on Ava's shoulder. You know, she murmured, I was afraid. Afraid you'd never let anyone in again. Afraid that your heart was locked behind all that logic in those court cases. Ava chuckled softly, resting her cheek against Lena's hair. I was afraid to. Afraid that my past would define me, that I'd never feel this. You're brave, Lena said, her voice barely above a whisper. Braver than anyone I've ever met. No, Ava said, shaking her head gently. I just finally know what matters. And right now it's you. They stayed like that for hours, watching the moonlight shimmer on the water, letting the silence speak louder than words ever could. When they returned to New York, Ava noticed the difference immediately. The city was the same, crowded, loud, relentless, but she felt different. She carried a lightness in her chest, a quiet confidence that life could be beautiful again. Lena became a part of her daily routine in a way that felt natural. Morning coffee at the corner cafe, shared walks through Central Park, late-night talks on Ava's balcony, the smell of city rain and Lena's perfume mingling. Every touch, every glance, every small gesture was a reminder that healing was possible. One evening, after a particularly long day at the firm, Ava returned home to find Lena waiting with takeout and a mischievous grin. I think we deserve a celebration, Lena said, handing her a box of dumplings. For surviving January and for finally letting life happen. Ava laughed, sitting down beside her. I think you're right. They ate together in comfortable silence, the kind of silence that spoke volumes. Ava felt content, whole, and safe, emotions that had seemed impossible just months ago. Valentine's Day approached, and Lena had planned a surprise. She led Ava to a quiet rooftop overlooking the skyline, where fairy lights were strung across the railing. The city sparkled below them, alive and vibrant, but it felt intimate, private, theirs. I wanted tonight to be about us, Lena said softly, taking Ava's hands in hers. No past, no work, no distractions. Just you and me. Ava's heart swelled. She thought about all the pain she'd endured, the nights spent in doubt and sorrow, the ache of letting go of Emily. And she realized that every moment of that heartbreak had led her here to Lena, to love renewed, to a future she could believe in. I love you, Ava whispered, the words spilling from her heart without hesitation. Lena's eyes glistened. I love you too. More than I can say. They leaned into each other, the city around them fading. The wind tangled their hair, the lights shimmered, and for the first time in a long time, Ava felt unshakable peace. The following months were a tapestry of shared life. Ava and Lena traveled together, returned to New York to face the everyday chaos side by side, and built a rhythm that was uniquely theirs. They celebrated small victories, comforted each other during setbacks, and learned that love wasn't about perfection, it was about choosing each other, again and again. Ava still remembered Emily, and she allowed herself that memory without guilt, but it no longer controlled her. It was a chapter, a lesson, a reminder of how resilient her heart could be. One evening, as they cooked dinner together in Ava's kitchen, Lena slipped her hand into Ava's and said, You know, I think this is my favorite part. The cooking. Ava teased. Not just the cooking, Lena replied, brushing her thumb across Ava's knuckles. Every ordinary moment feels extraordinary because it's with you. Ava smiled, pressing her forehead to Lena's. I feel the same. I never knew love could feel like this. It does, Lena whispered. When it's real. And in that small kitchen, amid laughter and the aroma of garlic and basil, Ava Lawrence realized she had finally found her home. Not a place, not a job, not a memory, but a person, someone who saw her completely, loved her fully, and walked beside her into every new day. Spring turned to summer. Ava and Lena spent long afternoons in the park, evenings on the rooftop, nights exploring the city hand in hand. They discovered small joys, the thrill of a shared secret, the comfort of a warm embrace after a stressful day, the quiet intimacy of reading together on a Sunday morning. One night, as they watched the sunset paint the skyline in shades of orange and pink, Lena leaned her head on Ava's shoulder. Promise me something, she asked. Anything, Ava replied. Promise me we'll keep choosing each other. No matter what happens. No matter the storms, the city, the past. Just us. Ava took her hand, squeezing it gently. I promise. They kissed, the city humming beneath them, the world vast yet intimate. Ava knew that love was never simple, never without challenge, but this was worth every risk, every heartbreak, every step it had taken to arrive here. And as night fell, sprinkling stars across the sky, Ava finally allowed herself to believe in forever. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.